Hello everyone. So we at Focal Point School, we are a concept art school, and we are sometimes we sometimes have a very hard time to explain to people what concept art is. I mean, to people that live outside that spectrum, that don't know much about concept design, because let's face it, it is not your everyday job, right? It is not your cliche job, with all due respect to all the cliche jobs, right? Like toilet cleaners, dentists, plumbers. These are all jobs that you just ask somebody what he does, and with one word they give you an answer and you exactly know what he's talking about, right? Like, what is your husband doing? Well, he's a dentist. Okay, everybody knows what a dentist is. What is your uncle doing? He's a plumber. Everybody knows that. What is, your wife doing? Well, she's a nurse, or whatever job that comes to mind. We always have a clear idea what it is. Of course, there are jobs out there that need sometimes more explanation, but I found that concept art needs the most explanation to people, right? And we are also here to, with that school being set up, we also want to make it more approachable. The profession needs to be more approachable, more known, more popular, and with the years it is getting more popular, fortunately. Now, what am I getting to? Today I want to talk about basically the definition, right? So you want to learn about concept art, you're looking for a school or a way to educate yourself, and you might sometimes have a hard time convincing people, or not even convincing, I mean explaining to people what concept art is, or what are you educating yourself on. And maybe perhaps I will be able to help you out with that, right? Let's first define what concept art is, right? So we have a mutual agreement of a defined word. So concept art can be the same as concept design. Let's start with that, because we are visual problem solvers and we are not actually artists. So you have to make it very clear to yourself, of course, to all the people that you are that you hold dear in your life, like your parents, your wife, your husband, to tell them what concept art and design is. It is not drawing for video games or drawing for movies. I mean, it is, but it doesn't. Sometimes I get confused, like, oh, so you drew this, as in they kind of think that it's already been done, and then you kind of like draw it for fun or for marketing purposes. It is very important to remember that we do this because we are solving a visual problem, right? So we are visual problem solvers. We are designers. So a better term to use is we are concept designers. Concept is idea, and designing is, well, designing, right? Coming up with new shapes, coming up with new solutions. And I guess that is very important to make it very clear and direct, so that this job one day will be as popular as being a dentist, being an engineer. And I hope that we are getting there. So and in the other way how you can explain it is, right, when somebody doesn't know what concept design is and you have like a big trouble explaining it, you can always start a small conversation, right? As in, well, movies, for example, like Transformers, or Lord of the Rings, and you've seen all the robots and the elves with the costumes and the landscapes. Well, that needs to be visually represented, and then you say, well, that is what concept artists do, right? Pretty simple, right? Pretty straightforward to explain that. So what is concept art? It is visual problem solving through designing whole worlds, or sometimes a piece of it, or sometimes a prop of it, as in a material asset, or a character, or an environmental scene. It can also come in many forms and shapes, as in even the color palette and structure can be concept design. The way how a character is being portrayed and poses and presents itself can be also part of art direction, concept design, and visual problem solving. So yeah, so let's clear that out, right? I hope that it all makes sense. And so for you to make it easier as well to explain what concept design is, because let's face it, right? It is still a very unique thing, I think. Not that we aren't so special or something. We're in the end we're just like designing for video games and movies, which we should of course be happy with. And I'm not now downplaying my own profession, but I also don't want to be like praised for it, that I'm the savior of the world. It is just another job. We are fortunate enough to do it because most of the concept designers, they do it because they love art, or they love that job. It developed from their personal passion. So in that sense, concept designers are most of the time lucky to do what they're being paid for. Of course, it is a lot of work, right? It takes a lot of time, practice, and mastering of a lot of skills, actually, because it's not the drawing skills that will make you a good concept designer. Since we now agree that concept design is coming up with new shapes, coming up with a new color palette, or a new vehicle or an environment, you need to have some vision of as well, and knowledge of how the real world works, so you can make your own interpretation on it. Now, of course, to represent it well, you need good skills to show it. And the most usual way is drawing skills, right? Painting skills, drawing skills. That is why it's called art. We are showing our ideas through art, even though it's not art. Meaning that this spaceship that I'm doing here, I cannot sell it as a piece of art worth thousands, right? It is perhaps worth thousands for the project it belongs to, right? A client might pay for this design as a design because they bring it, they build it in 3D, they animate it, and the design on its own is worth thousands. Once it's being built and it is in a movie or a game, it loses its value completely, right? So it's very important to remember. Fortunately, concept art is being seen as art, and thus art books are being made, it is being appreciated. And so these visual problem solving solutions are there is some artistic value to them attached, fortunately, right? But we cannot compare it to like real fine art, right? To like a beautiful, masterfully crafted landscape piece with a personal story behind it. That is just not the case. Also very important to remember, right? Perhaps also for yourself, so you don't misinterpret what you want to be. Let's say you thought till this time that concept art is being able to draw nicely, and it is illustration of existing IPs. Me personally, I guess more than 70% of all the projects I've worked on were attempts to start a new IP, right? Hence why I don't have that many shipped titles. Everything I've worked on has been an attempt to start a new IP, and that's where concept artists come in to shape that world, to visualize it. And you're coming up with visual solutions to inspire the rest of the team, right? Being in the game industry, most of my time I can tell that a lot of people rely on you being a concept artist. The 3D artist will rely on you if your drawings, your visual solutions, how I call them, are clear enough, are communicating enough to the 3D modeler and then through the animator, because a lot of things that you might design might move. Players will interact with it. It needs to be taken into to the next level. It needs to be alive, right? You need a whole team to actually realize your ideas the way you want them and the way your art director wants them. A lot of people will, depend on you, but you need in return all these people to make your ideas alive. So maybe also a tip to remember as well, that, you know, on your own, concept artists will have a hard time. You can make, you know, awesome designs. You know, you need a lot of other talented and skillful people to make those designs happen. So that's very, very important to remember, and also what we tell our students at Focal Point. What is concept design? Define it for yourself before you start doing it, before you start committing time to it. Know that it is not an egoistic job, right? I mean, now with the hype of social media, we all enjoy likes, you know, let's be honest. Artists have that in common. We like to show off, and we like, you know, the reaction of it. Sometimes we like, you know, a happy reaction. Sometimes we like, you know, as an artist, you want to, you know, invoke all different kinds of reactions and emotions, right? In the end, there is a little bit of artism in every concept designer, I assume. Even though we put design first and art second, right? So I guess all these factors are important. Now I'm perhaps rambling on, but for me, I wanted to do this video for two reasons. Because we have a lot of talented students, and sometimes they come in confused, as in after a couple of weeks, I mean, they learn a lot, and a lot of them open their eyes to the fact what concept art is, right? And sometimes I feel a little bit remiss of not being able to explain that, maybe, or put the word out more about what concept design is, right? Of course it is, you know, cool to draw for video games when you love video games, but it's not enough to love video games to be a concept designer. Being a concept designer means, well, you don't have to be a genius, all right? But you have to stay curious, and you need to have a certain passion for art, in my opinion. Right? You need to be able to have the passion to make a reinterpretation of reality, to make a representation of what you see, take interesting aspects from this world and rearrange them in your own way. That is what concept artist is. Or rearrange them in the way of, you know, that the project needs to be. There are a lot of games, right? You have cartooning games, realistic games. I call the realistic games not realistic. No game is realistic. Also very, very important to remember that even if you think you work in a realistic game, there is still art direction going on. There are still things that are being exaggerated, still things that are going to be stylized in order for the game to have its own identity, for it to pop out, so it reads, you know, better to the audience. So yeah, I hope that explanation helps. I might have missed something because talking to myself is always, you know, chaotic. My way of talking is sometimes chaotic. So yeah, but I'm really trying to have, like, here, you know, a structured conversation here. It's like, you know, I don't have like a list. I have it like in my mind. So the second thing I want to talk about is, you know, this design, this walkthrough. 20-minute video, sped up 3 times. It is one of my earlier sketches that I did as a demo in class, and at home I decided to do a second fast rendering of it. And yeah, let's talk about, you know, where concept art comes in, you know, in this particular design of a ship. It's a very weird looking ship. Kind of looks like a pigeon. I heard people saying it looks like a pigeon, but it's funky, it's clunky, and it has some, I guess, some cool elements around the cockpit, and then it has some funky elements. The thing is, when in the process was design the defining factor? Well, I would say in the initial sketch. But now that I'm coloring the mech, I'm actually still designing, right? Because I'm still thinking how to present, how to visually solve and represent all its materials in a quick and fast manner, right? It has a certain artistic style to it because it is like placed on this, you know, desaturated background. It has like this retro feeling going on. And the color itself also dictates how the designer feels, right? Remember that we are still artists actually, even though design comes first, but you want to trigger some kind of emotion when you design something. And it's applicable to everything, not only vehicles, but well, definitely characters, but also to interiors, environments, props, right? It can tell you everything. What kind of vehicle is it? And is it a sci-fi looking vehicle? Is it an aggressive looking military ship? Is it a peaceful freight ship maybe? Is it a rescue vehicle? All these things can be communicated within a design if you want, right? It's very important to explain to yourself a function and immerse yourself in. I think that is also concept design. Concept design is also observing, right? Even when you're not working, you're still working because you're observing the environment around you. And I think all these things are very important to remember with every design you make, every sketch you do. Concept art is also exploring your ideas, right? Don't sit down and make like one slick, beautiful drawing, but be curious about the world and make fast interpretations of how you see them. Exaggerate a little bit, do studies, do fast sketches, master that craft of the art skill that is necessary to show your ideas, and from there continue, right? So yeah, that is about this design. Color also dictates the way your design looks like, and here I'm of course rendering it out to show its material, to make it more immersive. There are the whole ship is white, then the second color accent is the gray in the middle, the metallic looking parts that are like holding the engines on the sides. Then we have the copper looking color, which are like the air intakes. So it's like, it indicates that it's a different sort of material and it makes it more stand out from the rest. And then there is like this blue accent, that I wanted to add in, which is in between kind of like the gray parts and the white parts. And then the white parts in itself have like this slight color transition, like slightly to red pinkish, just to indicate it is a different panel, right? Oh, and there's a fourth accent, right? I forgot about it. There is like a very small red tint here and there that it's a very subtle addition. And with color alone, you can, have like, a very emotional, aspect about your design, that your design will feel in a different way. Now imagine this design being, for example, all black with some orange accents. It will feel different, right? And yeah, at our school, we talk about it extensively, how to use it, how to use color compositions and combine them to have like a very nice, eye-pleasing solution and result, regardless of what colors you use, right? Colors have relations between each other, the materials as well, and we can play around it if we know first how the real world works. Because in the end, concept design, right, we come up with new things, but in the end it is just an illusion in any way. Everything that we come up with, that we claim as a new idea that we're being paid for, isn't the real world anyway. We are just rearranging it. I'd like you to thank for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.